Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning into the latest vlog update here at the Gavin Partridge YouTube channel. So it's just a few days after the historic, I think it's fair to say, 2024 UK general election that saw a very large majority for Labour of about 174 seats, and a catastrophic record-breaking lead, devastating result for the Conservative Party, and big gains for the Liberal Democrats and gains for the Greens and Reform as well. So we're going to go through all of the numbers in a moment and, just put the finishing touches really to the 2024 general election before we move on with our polling roundup videos that will return to being once a month videos, and there'll be polling roundups for the 2028 or 2029 UK general election. So I shall get to that for you in a moment, but just say that if you're enjoying the vlogs on the channel, please like, share, subscribe. Thanks so much to everybody for doing that. Right, okay, so let's start off with the exit poll then. That's the first place to begin. So when this was revealed, I did a little video talking about what the exit poll was saying. The exit poll for the BBC, ITV and Sky News was saying that Labour would be on 410 seats, a gain of 209. Conservatives were predicted were forecast to go down to 131 seats. That takes them down or loses them 241 seats. Liberal Democrats were predicted to be on 61 seats, a gain of 53. Reform were predicted to be on 13, though there was a lot of uncertainty about that, but they were predicted to be on 13 seats, which was a gain of 13. SNP going down to 10 seats, and that loses them 48. Plaid on 4 seats, they go up 2. And Greens on 2 seats going up 1. Now that's what the exit poll had to say at the start of the night on Thursday. Let's have a look at the overall results. We're at the House of Commons library here. And this is what happened. So, pretty good prediction from the exit poll for Labour. They went to 411 seats, so the exit poll was only 1 off the Labour score. Conservatives went down to 121 seats, so the exit poll overstated the Conservatives by 10 seats. It's well within the margin of error, though. Liberal Democrats went up to 72 seats, and so, that's virtually 10 up on what the exit poll was predicted. So it looks like the exit poll, was 10 seats too many for the Conservatives and 10 seats too less for the Liberal Democrats, more or less. Scottish National Party on 9 seats, though pretty good prediction from the exit poll for them. Sinn Féin, who don't take their seats, of course, in House of Commons on 7 seats. Independents got 6 seats, which is really quite unusual. Most of those came in safe Labour seats, I think. Though that was a little bit unusual, a bit different about this election. The Democratic Unionist Party, DUP, got 5 seats. Reform got 5 seats. So the exit poll overstated Reform quite significantly. Overstated Reform by about eight seats. And then the Green Party, they got 4 seats. So the exit poll understated the Greens a little bit. Plaid on 4 seats as well. Social Democratic and Labour Party on 2 seats. And then we've got the rest down here, including the Speaker, of course, Speaker Hoyle, who got 1 seat. And this is a change on the previous election, change on the 2019 election. So Labour going up 209 seats, the Conservatives absolutely cratering, going down 244 seats. The Liberal Democrats going up 61 seats. SNP also crashing, going down to 39 seats. No change for Sinn Féin. Independents went up 6, DUP went down 3. And Reform up 5, Greens up 3, and there was no change for Plaid. As far as the overall share of the vote was concerned, and this was a bit of a shock and has caused a lot of, discussion actually. So Labour, despite their absolutely enormous majority, and it is an enormous majority, no getting away from that, but Labour on just 33.7% of the national share of the vote, which is incredibly low for for a winning party. Even to get like a majority of one on 33.7% would be extraordinary. I don't think that's happened before. I don't think it's ever happened before that a party has been that low for its national share of the vote and got a majority, never mind one of the biggest majorities in British political history. The reason it happened is because of their number one rival, the Conservatives, going down to 23.7% of the vote. So basically, Labour was on 34%, if you round it up, and the Conservatives were on 24%, again, round up, which is a 10% deficit between Labour and the Conservatives. We have the first past proposed system, which is basically a two-horse race. So if you've got two parties, and of course, first past proposed was originally designed and created for the Conservative Liberal two-horse race, but we used to have, before the First World War, particularly back in the 19th century, but also into the 20th century as well, when it really was literally a two-horse race between Conservatives and Liberals. And if you've got a two-horse race, of course, it works absolutely fine. But if you've got lots of multiple parties, then you can get all sorts of strange results occurring. And that is what has happened in this particular general election, because we have Reform here going down to going up to 14.3% of the national vote, I should say. The Liberal Democrats on 12.2% of the national vote. Greens with a very high national share of vote on 6%. Most of that would have come from Labour, I think. SNP on 2.5% of the vote, and then we've got the other smaller parties down here. So the upshot is that despite Labour only getting 34% of the national share of the vote, they come away with this absolutely extraordinary result of 411 seats, and a majority of about 174. If we had a system of proportional representation, there are, of course, various proportional systems in play, then Labour in particular would have been a lot lower on their seat share. Reform would have been a lot higher on their seat share. I think Conservatives would have been up slightly on their seat share, but not greatly, probably number 20 or 30 or so. Liberal Democrats would probably been about the same on their seat share, but this election is one of the few that has actually been really quite proportional for the Liberal Democrats. And the Greens would have been significantly up on their seat share. So it really is Reform and the Greens that have lost out with this, and Labour in particular that has gained through having the first past proposed voter system. By the way, the Liberal Democrat vote, of course it was a different party back then, but the Liberal Democrat seat share, I should say, is the highest Liberal seat share that we've seen in the House of Commons since 1923. That was the old Liberal Party, of course, but then the year later, 1924, they absolutely crashed, and they've never had, a significant seat share again, other than maybe about 2005, when we had the election and they opposed Iraq war, and they went up to about 60 seats, I think. But 72 seats for the Liberal Democrats is the highest sort of Liberal seat share for about 101 years. Oh, really, really good result for the Liberal Party, the Liberal Democrats. Right, so how did the opinion polls do? Well, clearly Labour were very significantly overstated with most of the polls. So all of these polls that had Labour in the 40s, 41, 41, 41, 41, 40, they was all overstated Labour significantly. The other polls that had Labour in the upper 30s, they was overstating Labour as well, but at least they did get Labour out of the 40s into the 30s. A couple of polls, of course, had Labour as low as 36%, so we have people polling there, Labour as low as 36%. But again, people poll was much too low for Conservatives, and also too low for the Liberal Democrats and too high for Reform. There are a few other opinion polls that had Labour going down to 36%. We have Berrien just there with Labour again at 36%. No, that is within the margin for error, I suppose, of the results. There is like a 2-3% margin of error, but really most of these opinion polls were overstating Labour with their share and also with their overall lead over the Conservatives. Most of them, with an overall lead of like 19, 18, 20%. In the end, the lead was exactly 10%. As we see here for the UK, for GB, it was 10.3% Labour lead. Right, so we can see on the polling graph, and we talked about this through the polling rounds, of course, that the opinion polls were picking up on a decline in Labour support. You see how Labour's trend lines sort of dropped throughout the campaign, but at the same time, so too did the Conservative trend line. So you remember that through most of the election, but despite Labour's trend line dropping through most of the election, the polls were indicating a roughly 20% Labour lead. Right at the very end, that came down to about a 17% Labour lead. But of course, in the end, it finished up at just a 10%. Well, say just, that's 10% is still quite a significant lead, but it finished up at a 10% overall Labour lead. And of course, we had Reform being slightly overstated by the polls, if anything, but again, within the margin for error, probably. Most of the polls, I think, had Reform at about 17 or 18%. They finished up about 14%. Liberal Democrats, pretty well, actually, predicted by the opinion polls, may be slightly lower, if anything, than where they ended up. I think, really, most polls were predicting Liberal Democrats to be about 11%, and they finished up a little bit higher than that. And then we've got Greens also being slightly understated, not too bad though, and the SNP down here, of course. What about the MRP polls? It's very difficult to judge those because we had so many of them. What I would say is that the earlier MRP polls that had the Conservatives dropping underneath the Liberal Democrats and losing their place as the official opposition, clearly, they were wrong because the Conservatives, whilst it was an absolutely dreadful result, the worst Conservative result in history, still finished up significantly ahead, actually, in terms of seats over the Liberal Democrats. So 72 to 121. They're, something like 40, 71, 81, 91, 01, 11. Yeah, there's something like 50 seats ahead of the Liberal Democrats. So that's quite a significant difference between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats there. So the polls that had the Conservatives losing their place as the official opposition, MRP polls, I should say, that had the Conservatives losing their place as the official opposition, they were clearly, overdoing things. I think the later MRP polls did quite well, though. We had the MRPs from YouGov later. We had More in Common, JL Partners. I think most of them were roughly there or thereabouts, overstating Labour perhaps a little bit, and the reason for that is that the national opinion polls that those MRPs are based on. Remember, what the MRP does, it conducts a national poll, essentially, and then it feeds that data through a model that comes up with a seat prediction. So, if the national polls are wrong, then the seat prediction isn't going to be 100% accurate. So I think most of the MRPs overstated the seats Labour would end up with a little bit, but nevertheless, still pretty decent, I think, most of those final MRP polls. I don't think they was a million miles away from the final result, which is pretty remarkable given, the way that the national polls were overstating Labour quite a bit in terms of their national share of the vote. So not too bad from the MRPs, but definitely they was more reliable late on when they started taking into account, I assume, the decline in the Labour national share of the vote. What about my prediction? Let's go here. So, on the final polling roundup that we did on election eve, I gave a little prediction for what I thought was going to happen. Now, I think I went for Labour to be on 39%. I kind of went with the national polls, and obviously that was far too low for Labour. So I was significantly out, along with the pollsters. I was significantly out on Labour's national share of the vote. For Conservatives, I went for 24%, so that was pretty decent. You're around the Conservative figure up, 23.7, 24%, not too bad. I think for Reform, I went for 15%, so that wasn't too bad either. For the Liberal Democrats, so I go for 11% for the Liberal Democrats. So, again, not too bad within the margin for error. I went for 7% for Greens as well. So that was pretty decent prediction. I didn't give a forecast for the SNP. So overall, I think I did quite well, actually, with my prediction. But, of course, I was significantly out for Labour. We was very close here, I think, to having a bit of a polling disaster, to be honest, the way that the opinion polls were overstating Labour's national share of the vote by about probably 4 or 5%. We really wasn't all that far away from having a bit of a polling fiasco. But the pollsters were saved by lots and lots and lots of tactical voting. And of course, some of that decline in the Labour share that we saw through the general election campaign was as a result of tactical voting, particularly in terms of the Liberal Democrats. Liberal Democrat Labour voters voting for the Liberal Democrats in Conservative Liberal Democrat seats to get the Conservative out. And also, of course, Reform as well. A big switch from Conservative to Reform took place, and that accounts for a lot of the decline in the Conservative national share as well as Conservative voters, normal Conservative voters, just staying home and not bothering to turn out. So the pollsters really were saved by tactical voting in this election. But another time, and so nobody's really going to take a great deal of notice of the fact that Labour were really quite significantly overstated by a lot of the polls this time. But of course, another time, if this happens again, and we see the Conservatives higher, less tactical voting, or another party much higher, and again less tactical voting, and Labour is overstated in the polls by at least 5 or 6%, then the pollsters are going to be in trouble. So they got away with it this time. I would say the pollsters got away with it this time. But another time they may not do so. So I would imagine behind the scenes there will continue to be a lot of a lot of scratching of heads and trying to go back to the drawing board, because this is something that we've seen in previous elections, particularly, of course, famously, infamously, 1992. When Labour were overstated in national polls. 2015, this happened a little bit as well, Labour being overstated. So it is something that does happen, quite often, particularly when Labour are in opposition to the Conservatives, and also, have a lead. It is often overstated by the opinion pollsters. But I say this time they got away with it in terms of the actual results and the seats. But I would imagine they will be doing a bit of a review to see what they're going to do. The Conservatives, again, have to emphasise this was their worst performance in the general election in their history. They were founded in 1832. I think they're by Sir Robert Peel, their first election as Conservatives, they changed from Tory to Conservatives. First election was 1834. In all of that time, they have never done as bad as this. 1997 was their worst result. So this is a very similar result to 1997 in terms of the Labour seat share. In terms of the Conservative seat share and also national share of vote, this is much, much, much worse than 1997, because not only in 1997, of course, they lost lots of votes and seats to Labour, and they lost some votes and seats to the Liberal Democrats, but not this many. But of course, this time they also have Reform, and they've also lost significant numbers of votes to Reform. And whilst Reform haven't picked up, lots of seats, they have done tremendous damage to the Conservative and the Conservative seat share and their national share of the vote. So there we go. We wait and see what's going to happen next. Labour in government, they've got a very, very, very secure majority for the next 5 years. So if things go well, I assume for Labour, for the government, if things go well, I would assume the next election will be in 2028. If things go badly, then the next election is more likely to be in 2029. So we'll see how that works out. And of course, opinion polls, there'll probably be a bit of a lull in the opinion polls now for the next few weeks. I've just had, the most significant opinion poll that you can have, which is a general election. So I imagine a lot of the pollsters will be going quiet while they, try to work out what changes they can make to their methodologies and whatnot. And the opinion polls will start picking up again, though, later on in the summer. So I would assume it'll probably be a couple of months before we do our next polling roundup. But the polling roundups will return for the next UK general election. And we'll get things rolling again on the channel in a month or two's time. I think we might do some polling videos for the US election as well. That perhaps coming up in a month or so's time. So quite a bit to look forward to if you're a polling geek and a polling anorak like I am. And so just keep checking the channel, and the videos will reappear after a little bit of a break. Right then, well, that's it. That closes the door on the 2024 UK general election. No, thank you so much for the support on the channel, especially through the election. Some of the videos that we did, the polling round videos, went to like 4,000 or 5,000 views, so absolutely incredible. It means I am able to monetize the channel now, actually. So this is my old original channel, off on a tangent now, but I'll just say about this before we close the video, and end it. But this is my original channel all the way from 2012, and I used to upload weather videos to the channel for a couple of years, and then I moved weather videos to a specific channel in the name of my website, Gav's Weather Vids, and this channel kind of went dormant, although the videos, the old weather videos are still here, and they get a few views and whatnot. We've got one historic video for 1963, but sitting on about 55,000 views, I think. But the upshot of that is that the channel got demonetized because it wasn't getting enough watch time and didn't have enough subscribers, because everybody shifted over to the weather channel. So these polling roundup videos, and especially through the election, have gained a lot of views, gained a lot of watch time, and a significant number of subscribers. So thank you so much for that. And it means that the channel is now going to be remonetized by Google and by YouTube. So particularly on those historic videos that do still gain a few views, I'll be able to earn a little bit of money back on those. So thank you so much, everybody, for the support through this general election, for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting. You've been great, so thank you so much, everybody. And as I say, after a bit of a lull, the polling roundups for the next UK general election will return in probably a month or two's time. But that closes the door on the 2024 general election, as I say. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll end it there for this one. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.